Instant sports. Well, this is my final review of the year, so I wanted to review something that looked like it could be good. I mean, who wouldn't want to have 6 sports for $30? Baseball, soccer, tennis, bowling, and that's only 4 of the 6. How can this possibly be bad? Well, it could be if all the sports were just minigame versions of them with no real depth at all. Run and jump, tennis, rafting, goalkeeper, bowling, and baseball. 3 of them are basically just minigames, and 1 of them is just unplayable for me because it required 2 players. Now, on the others, I was able to cheat and play with 2 hands or take turns to test out the 2 players. On the other games, on Goalkeeper, it requires you to play against another person. There isn't really any reason for this. They could have just had a generic version of it or have a version of it without the power-ups to mess with the other players. But that option wasn't available in this, so I couldn't really test it. So the other 5 games were available to play, so I'm just going to talk about them from best to worst. Bowling. I mean, you can't really screw this one up. This is the most fleshed out game on this collection. There is the normal bowling mode, as well as an obstacle version of it where you have to throw your ball around stationary and moving blocks of wood. You use the motion controls in this, and I think it worked just fine. The only downside I saw was the annoying pauses. After I throw the ball and hit the pins, there's about a 2 to 3 second wait as you're waiting for it to react to what you're doing. And then you have to wait for it to finish, and then you move on to throwing the ball again. This was unskippable, and that's the only annoying part of it. Tennis. This was both bare bones and not at all at the same time. You could choose to play with motion controls or button controls. I tried them both out, and I think the motion controls were the best. When I used the button controls, I would constantly hit the ball out of the court. It rarely happened when I was using motion controls. Now, unfortunately, the only thing you could do is choose where you're hitting the ball. You can't move the character. The game does that for you. On some of the higher difficulty levels, some of the rallies might go on for an absurd amount of time. I had one go on for over 3 minutes, just hitting the ball back and forth, and the me-like character on the screen would look like it was getting tired. It was a nice little thing they added there, but I didn't notice any differences on the way they hit the ball. One of the oddest things that you'll start noticing is the background characters. They often make stadiums where people can watch you play, but they hardly filled them at all. It's like the characters in this game knows that this thing is kind of terrible and doesn't really want to go to these events either. There are countless half-empty events or sporadic viewings of them, yet the applause after someone wins a point is just booming. It's just the 2 things don't match up. Baseball, or as it should really be called, home run derby. They give you 4 pitches and you have to hit it. Once again, a basically empty crowd. The controls of this were motion controls and they never seemed to work well. I was sure I was hitting it in a direction and it would constantly hit the same way every time. I tested it by thrusting my hands in all kinds of directions, but still the same outcome. It was an okay game to play, but why didn't they make a mini version of baseball like Wii Sports? It felt like a lazy way of doing this. Rafting was just about going down a river and avoiding rocks and riding into presents to speed you up or send you further down the river. You can race against another person, but you better have 2 sets of Joy-Cons because this game requires both of them so you can paddle on each side of the raft. It was pretty boring. The water didn't act realistic at all. There were waterfalls that had water taking smooth curves instead of spilling downward like you would expect. Finally, run and jump. You shake your Joy-Con to keep it in the border of the indicators, and you have to thrust up when you have to jump over a hurdle. If you wait till the last second, you get a speed boost. Like most of the games, there are 3 difficulty levels: easy, medium, and hard. The hardest difficulty had the most ridiculous AI with rubber banding, where it would just zoom in first place all of a sudden, even though they were way behind a second ago. You can unlock different outfits and stuff in the games. They were just different looks, and as far as I could tell, didn't affect the gameplay. They made this even more annoying by making it a blind unlock. You pay 200 points and that unzips a bag which will have a various item in it. Instant Sports is not an instant classic. In fact, it takes some of the best ideas of other games and just simplifies it. There is nothing here that I haven't seen done better, which is frustrating. They're almost asking $30 for the physical version and $24.99 for the digital. And for both of those prices, I would just skip this. There's really only one full-fledged game, and that's bowling. And it's really hard to screw up bowling. Even the tennis one didn't have doubles or let you move around. This one is just too simplistic, so I would just skip it. Well, that's it. My final review of the year. So you know what that means. My next major video is going to be my top 10 worst games I reviewed this year.